My sister-in-law slapped her niece because she refused to bring her a glass of water, but my brother stood up for her. I don't even know where to start, or if I'm the asshole here, but my stomach is in knots and I haven't slept in days. I just need an outside perspective because I feel like I'm going crazy. It all comes down to our family Sundays. For anyone who grew up in a big, loud family, you know what I'm talking about. In our house in Buenos Aires, Sunday lunch wasn't just a meal. It was a religion. The day started with the smell of my mom's tuco, pasta sauce, simmering on the stove, a rich, garlicky cloud that filled every room. By 1 p.m., the house would be overflowing with the noise of life. My uncles arguing about football, the little cousins chasing each other under the table, the clatter of plates, and the constant, overlapping waves of conversation. This was our sacred space. The one time a week everything stopped and we were just a family. I've always been the quiet observer in this chaos. I'm Lucia, the aunt who is perfectly happy to help in the kitchen and listen more than I talk. The center of my universe in that house is my niece, April. She's 12, just on that fragile edge between being a kid and a teenager. She has this bright, thoughtful soul and is usually so respectful and sweet, the kind of kid who says please and thank you without being prompted. I love her more than words can say. Her dad, my brother Pablo, is a good man. He adores April and he genuinely loves his wife Leticia. But his defining feature has always been his absolute terror of confrontation. He is the family's chief diplomat, the guy who will crack a joke to diffuse tension or change the subject when things get heated. Keeping the peace is his prime directive, even if it means letting things slide that shouldn't. We've all seen him do it 1,000 times. And that brings me to my sister-in-law, Leticia. For the last 15 years, she has been the undisputed queen of our Sundays. It's hard to explain her without sounding like I'm just being a bitchy sill. It's not that she's some evil monster from a movie. It's more subtle. It's an ingrained, unshakable sense of entitlement that our entire family has slowly, unconsciously, learned to navigate. She holds court at the head of the table, and conversations naturally bend toward her gravitational pull. Her stressful week, a passive-aggressive comment a coworker made, the new shoes she's thinking of buying. We all just adapted. When she's in a good mood, the day is light and fun. When she's not, you can feel the pressure in the room drop. We all learn the dance. Keep her happy, compliment her, and whatever you do, don't rock the boat. We all got so used to tiptoeing around her moods that we forgot it wasn't normal. For years, anytime someone even gently questioned her behavior, the family motto would kick in. That's just how she is. My mom would say it with a resigned wave of her hand. My brother would say it with a helpless shrug. It was the magic phrase that excused everything, the get-out-of-jail-free card for 1,000 tiny cuts. That's just how she is, became the justification for why a grown woman needed her 12-year-old niece to act as her personal assistant. I feel sick thinking about it now, how normal it all seemed. It started small, of course. When April was maybe 8 or 9, it was, "Abril, sweetie, get Tia Letty's purse from the car." Then it became, "Abril, clear my plate," even when the rest of us were still eating. Soon there was no sweetie and rarely a please. It was just an expectation, a command delivered from the couch while she scrolled on her phone. It wasn't just on Sundays either. I saw the text she'd send. Not, "How was school?" but, "Remind your dad to pick up my dry cleaning." Or, "The dishwasher needs to be emptied before I get home." She treated my niece like an unpaid intern for the business of her own comfort. And God forbid April ever pushed back. I remember one time, maybe a year ago, Leticia asked her to go fetch her reading glasses from upstairs. April was in the middle of drawing something she was really proud of and said, "Okay, in just a minute, Tia, I want to finish this line." She said it politely, with a smile even. The shift in the room was immediate. Leticia didn't yell. She did something much worse. She let out this long, theatrical sigh, the kind that sucks all the air out of a room. She put a hand on her lower back and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, No, it's fine. I'll go get it. My knees are aching today, but I'll just struggle up the stairs myself. Don't you worry." Of course, what happened next was the same thing that always happened. My mom shot up from her chair. "No, Letty, I'll get it. And Pablo rushed over to Abril, whispering, Mija, just go get the glasses, please. It's easier. And that was the lesson we all taught her, day in and day out. We taught her that her drawing didn't matter. Her focus didn't matter. Her minute didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was appeasing Leticia to avoid that suffocating cloud of passive-aggressive martyrdom. We were all so desperate to keep the peace of our Sundays that we sacrificed my niece's right to be a kid. We were the ones who taught her that a grown woman's whim was more important than her own boundaries. We were all complicit, building the pedestal she stood on, one fetched glass of water at a time. We thought we were just managing her personality, but we were enabling a tyrant. And we were about to find out the price of that peace. So, this past Sunday started just like any other. The sun was streaming through the windows, making dust motes dance in the air. The smell of my mom's ravioli and that slowly simmered tuco was thick and comforting. My uncles were already getting loud about some soccer match, and my little cousins were using the hallway as a racetrack. It was the perfect, beautiful, predictable chaos that I've known my whole life. Abril had brought her homework, setting up a little station for herself at the small desk in the corner of the living room. She was trying to get ahead on a math assignment, her brow furrowed in concentration, her pencil scratching away on the paper. I remember smiling at the sight of her, so focused amidst the storm of family. Leticia was in her usual spot on the main sofa, scrolling through her phone. She hadn't moved for the better part of an hour except a plate of food from my mom. The background noise was at its usual Sunday peak when her voice sliced through it, sharp and devoid of any warmth. Abril, get me a glass of water. It wasn't a question. There was no, please, no, could you. It was an order, delivered with the casual authority of someone who has never been told no. Abril didn't even look up at first. She was deep in an equation, her tongue sticking out slightly from the corner of her mouth. Without taking her eyes off her, notebook, she said. I can't right now, Tia. I'm just trying to finish this one problem. Her voice was quiet, respectful. It wasn't defiant. It wasn't rude. It was the simple, honest statement of a 12-year-old girl trying to focus on her schoolwork. It was a boundary. And it was the first time I'd ever heard her set one with Leticia. The effect was instantaneous. It was like someone had hit a mute button on the entire house. My uncle's rant about the referee trailed off into silence. The clinking of forks on plates stopped. Even the little kids seemed to sense the shift and pause their game. I looked over at Leticia, and the air around her felt like it was turning to ice. She slowly, deliberately, placed her phone face down on the couch cushion. She stood up. My brother Pablo must have felt it too, because I saw him start to rise from his chair. A nervous, placating smile already forming on his lips, ready to smooth things over like he always does. But he was too slow. Leticia crossed the living room in 5 long, silent strides. My heart was pounding in my chest, a sick, heavy drumbeat of dread. I wanted to say something, to yell, "Leave her alone!" but my throat closed up. We all just watched, frozen, like we were watching a nature documentary where the predator stalks its prey. She reached the little desk where Abril was still looking down at her book, probably oblivious to the fury she had unleashed. Leticia stood over her for a second, a towering shadow, and then she raised her hand. The sound. I will never, ever forget that sound. It wasn't loud like in the movies. It was a sharp, wet, ugly crack that cut through the silence and seemed to suck all the air out of the room. It was the sound of skin hitting skin. The sound of a line being crossed that could never be uncrossed. Abril's head whipped to the side from the force of it. A collective, horrified gasp rippled through the family. My own breath hitched in my throat. And for a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. We all just stared at the bright red handprint blooming on my niece's cheek, a permanent stain on what was once our sacred Sunday. For a second, the only thing I could hear was the ringing in my own ears. The shock was a physical thing, a jolt of ice water that shot down my spine and froze me in place. All I could see was that red mark on my niece's face, a violent splash of color against her pale skin. Then, just as quickly, the ice turned to fire, a hot, shaking rage, started in my gut and spread through my limbs until my hands were trembling. I was ashamed, deeply and horribly ashamed, that my first reaction was to freeze. I should have jumped up. I should have screamed. I should have stood between them. But we had all been conditioned for so long to not make a scene that even in the face of this, my body forgot how to move. My eyes darted to my brother, Pablo. I was terrified. A sick, familiar dread washed over me as I watched him. I saw the horror on his face, but underneath it I saw the flicker of his old instinct, the peacemaker, the conflict avoider. I was so scared he was about to do what he always did, try to smooth it over. I could almost hear the words forming on his lips, some weak attempt to placate his wife and then turn to his daughter and tell her to just apologize to make it stop. I think if he had, I might have slapped him myself, but April didn't give him the chance. She didn't scream or throw a tantrum. She just made this tiny, wounded sound, a gasp that was more pain than air. Her hand slowly went up to her cheek, her big brown eyes wide with a disbelief that shattered my heart into a million pieces. Then the tears came. Not loud, angry sobs, but huge, silent drops that rolled down her face as she scrambled away from the desk, knocking her pencils to the floor with a clatter. She ran, clutching her stomach, and locked herself in the guest bathroom down the hall. The click of the lock echoed in the silent room. That sound finally broke my paralysis. While everyone else was still staring, mouths agape, I walked to that bathroom door. My own vision was blurry with tears of rage. I pressed my ear against the wood, my heart hammering against my ribs. And I heard her. She was crying, but it was what she was whispering to herself that broke me completely. Over and over, in a choked, desperate little voice, she was saying, "I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything." Hearing her try to convince herself that she wasn't to blame, after we had all spent years teaching her that appeasing Leticia was the most important thing, it was like a physical blow. The hot rage inside me instantly cooled into something else, something hard and clear and cold. This wasn't going to be another "that's just how she is" moment. This was not going to be smoothed over and forgotten by next Sunday. Leticia's power came from two things: our family's cowardly silence and the perfect public image she curated for everyone. I decided right then, standing outside that bathroom door listening to my niece cry, that I was going to take both of those things away from her. And I knew exactly how. I was going to use the very place she performed her role as the perfect wife and mother the most: the family WhatsApp group. I walked away from the bathroom door, leaving my niece to her grief for a moment. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was a block of ice. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the family WhatsApp group icon. It's called Familia Unida, United Family. The irony was so bitter it almost made me laugh. I opened the chat. The last message was from my aunt, a picture of the dessert she'd brought, posted just an hour before everything went to hell. It felt like a photo from another lifetime. My fingers moved with a weird, detached precision. I didn't write an angry tirade. I didn't call Leticia a monster. I knew exactly what I had to do. I wrote one simple, factual sentence. Just so everyone is aware, at approximately 2:15 p.m. today, Leticia slapped April across the face for not getting her a glass of water. I stared at the words. They looked stark and brutal on the screen. Before I could second-guess myself, I added, "Several of us were here to witness it." And I hit send. The little blue check marks appeared almost instantly. The explosion was immediate, but it wasn't in the chat. My phone started ringing, the screen flashing with a picture of my mom. I stepped into the kitchen, my back to the frozen tableau in the living room, and answered. "Lucia, what have you done?" she whispered, her voice frantic and sharp. "Delete that right now. Ahora mismo." I could hear the panic in her tone, the desperate need to shove this ugliness back under the rug where it belonged. "No, Mama," I said, my own voice low and steady, a stranger's voice. "I'm not deleting it." "You are airing our dirty laundry for everyone to see," she hissed. "This is a private, family matter. You're going to tear this family apart. Think of your brother." "I am thinking of my brother," I shot back, my composure cracking. I'm thinking of his daughter, who is locked in the bathroom crying because his wife hit her. Did you think of her humiliation when it happened 5 feet away from you?" The line went quiet for a second, filled with her heavy, disapproving breathing. "We handle this privately," she finally said, as if that word was a magic spell. "We don't put on a show." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a notification from the group chat. And there it was. Leticia's counteroffensive. She hadn't replied directly to my message. Instead, she posted a long paragraph, dripping with faux victimhood. "I am absolutely heartbroken that a private disciplinary moment between me and my daughter is being twisted like this," she wrote. "April was being incredibly disrespectful, screaming at me in a way I have never heard. When I tried to talk to her, calmly, she raised a hand to me. I reacted as a mother, to stop her. I would never, ever hurt her without provocation. My blood ran cold. A lie. A complete, total, disgusting fabrication. April hadn't screamed. She hadn't moved a muscle except to absorb the blow." My phone started buzzing again, this time with private messages from cousins and aunts. "Luli, what is Leticia talking about? Did April really try to hit her?" The narrative was already splitting. My simple, brutal fact was now up against her complicated, emotional lie. And I knew which one was easier for a conflict-avoidant family to believe. In the group chat, her sister was the first to jump in. "Leticia would never do something like that without a reason. You should be ashamed of yourself, Lucia, for attacking her like this." The battle lines were being drawn in real time, and I felt a sudden, sickening wave of dread. I had thrown a grenade into my family, and I had no idea if the truth would be enough to survive the blast. For about an hour, I just sat there, phone in hand, watching my family implode. My mother's words, "You're tearing us apart," were ringing in my ears on a loop. And looking at the chaos in the group chat, I started to believe her. It had split into factions almost immediately. Leticia's sister and a couple of my more distant cousins were fully on her side, posting messages about loyalty and how kids these days are so disrespectful. A few others were playing diplomat, sending weak messages like, "Let's all calm down and talk about this later." But the worst part was the silence from everyone else. The people who were right there, who saw it with their own eyes, my uncles, my own mother, were completely silent in the chat. Their silence was a verdict. It was screaming that my nuclear option was worse than the original crime. A sick, heavy knot of anxiety started twisting in my stomach. I read Leticia's lie again and again. She raised a hand to me. It was so brazen, so theatrical. But it was also believable to anyone who wanted an easy way out. Her story gave them an excuse to not pick a side, to just chalk it up to a difficult situation. Was I making it worse? Maybe my mom was right. Maybe I should have pulled Pablo aside, talked to him privately, but the memory of him starting to rise from his chair with that weak, placating smile on his face made my blood boil. He wouldn't have done anything. He would have brokered a fake peace and asked his daughter to apologize for the slap she received. I started to spiral. Was I just as bad as Leticia, using public humiliation as a weapon? My heart was pounding with a horrible mix of rage and self-doubt. I felt like I was the villain. I was the one who had dropped the bomb. I was the one airing the dirty laundry. Maybe Leticia's lie was more palatable than my ugly truth. Maybe everyone would choose her story because it was easier, and I would be the hysterical, drama-loving SIL who ruined Sundays forever. I was just about to close the app, to just give up, when a new notification popped up at the top of my screen. It wasn't from the family group. It was a private message from a number I didn't have saved. It was our next-door neighbor, Maria. She's a lovely woman who Leticia is always desperately trying to impress, inviting her for coffee and loudly complimenting her garden whenever she's within earshot. My stomach dropped. I figured it was a message telling me to keep our family drama down. Opened it with a sense of dread. The message read, "Hi, Lucia. Sorry to bother you. I don't want to get involved in your family's business, but my doorbell camera is very sensitive, and it records audio if our front window is open. It picked up a lot of the argument from your house a little while ago. I wasn't sure if it would be helpful, but I thought you should have it. Below the text, there were 2 audio files. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely press the play button. I put the phone to my ear, my breath held tight in my chest. The first few seconds were just the muffled noise of our family, distant laughter, the clink of a glass. Then, clear as day, I heard Leticia's voice, sharp and imperious. "April, get me a glass of water." I heard my niece's quiet, focused reply. "I can't right now, Tia. I'm just trying to finish this one problem." And then, silence. A heavy, loaded silence that lasted maybe 3 seconds on the recording but felt like an eternity. Then came the sound. The same ugly, wet crack that was burned into my memory. It was unmistakable. It was followed by the sound of April's tiny, heartbroken gasp. I felt a wave of cold validation wash over me. But it was what came next that turned my blood to ice. After the slap, after April's gasp, the recording captured Leticia's voice. It wasn't yelling. It wasn't the voice of a mother who had reacted in the heat of the moment. It was low, cold, and dripping with venom. And she said so clearly that it felt like she was whispering right in my ear, "You'll learn to obey. You'll learn to obey." All the doubt, all the guilt, all the fear that I had gone too far, it all vanished in that instant. It was replaced by a certainty so absolute it felt like steel reinforcing my spine. This was never about a glass of water. It wasn't about disrespect. It was about subjugation. It was about a grown woman punishing a child for daring to have a single moment that wasn't dedicated to her comfort. My mother's words about dirty laundry echoed in my head, but they sounded different now. This wasn't laundry. This was evidence. And I was going to make sure everyone saw it. I didn't hesitate. With that cold, chilling audio file saved to my phone, I went straight back to the Familia Unida chat. I found the file and attached it. The little progress bar filled up, and then it was there, sitting in the chat log for everyone to see. But I wasn't done. I scrolled through my phone's gallery, finding the screenshots I'd taken over the years, the texts from my SIL to April. "The kitchen floor is sticky. Clean it before I get home. I need you to iron my blouses for work tomorrow. Go to the store and get me my face cream. Your dad left his wallet on the counter." I sent them one after another, a cascade of evidence documenting years of entitlement and emotional abuse. Then I added a single line of text underneath it all. For anyone confused about the context. The silence in the house was absolute. Everyone was just staring at their phones, watching the chat. I looked across the room at my brother. Pablo's face was pale, his eyes fixed on his screen. I watched his thumb press the play button on the audio file. The recording wasn't loud, but in the dead quiet of that room, it was a sonic boom. We all heard it. Leticia's sharp command, April's quiet refusal, the sickening crack of the slap, and then Leticia's cold, venomous voice, "You'll learn to obey." Pablo didn't react. He just pressed play again. The whole ugly scene played out a second time, echoing in our living room. Leticia started to open her mouth, probably to spin another lie, but he held up a hand without even looking at her. He played it a third time. He wasn't getting angry. He was getting still. It was like watching years of denial and conflict avoidance burn away in real time, leaving behind something hard and resolute. He finally put his phone down on the table with a quiet click. He stood up, walked calmly over to his wife and looked her dead in the eye. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "Pack your things," he said. "You're not laying a hand on my daughter again." And just like that, it was over. Leticia is gone. She's staying with her sister, and from what I hear, her frantic calls to relatives for sympathy have been met with cold silence. The audio file left no room for debate. Pablo filed a formal complaint with the court to ensure custody boundaries are legally protected, something I never dreamed he'd have the strength to do. Our family is shaken, there's no doubt about that. But for the first time, we're united behind April. My uncles have called to check on her, my aunts are dropping off her favorite snacks. The silence that enabled Leticia for so long has finally been broken. My niece is safe, and she knows none of this was her fault. That's all I ever wanted. But my mother is still furious with me. She called me last night and said that while she's glad Leticia is gone, I humiliated her publicly and went too far. She thinks I should have trusted Pablo to handle it privately, that I broke the family by airing our dirty laundry for everyone to see. The thing is, we gave Pablo 15 years to handle it privately, and he never did. He couldn't. Not until the truth was so loud and so public that he had no choice but to listen. So, Reddit, I have to know. Aida for blowing up my family's WhatsApp group and airing all the dirty laundry to force everyone to finally see the truth about my sister-in-law?